Hello and welcome. It's time for another Krush Dev Diary. I have a reasonably sized update for you this week. I actually didn't do anything last week. Unfortunately, I was bogged down with that Half-Life video. But the week before, I did actually have a really productive day. So, let's go through the changelog. Let's see what has changed. First thing, and quite a major feature, is I implemented slow motion. Now, before, some things were locked to the frame rate. So I just had to make sure that everything was locked to a single timescale, which meant that I could then dynamically adjust that timescale to slow down or speed up time. And you won't see too much of this, but when the car gets close to the bulldozer, you'll notice that time slows down slightly. The effect increases the closer you get to the bulldozer, so it's in those near-death instances where the game almost stops, but not quite. And it's a subtle effect, but you'll notice it. Certainly when the bulldozer speeds up and you spend longer within that slowdown zone. Anyway, kind of a cool effect. It's a subtle effect, but I will be making use of the slow motion in some of the phase effects, I think. I might, for instance, have a slow motion phase. I might have a fast motion phase, which means everything will move slightly quicker. And another thing I want to do is a matrix phase, where you slow down as you hit the targets and everything goes into bullet time. But that's for the future. So next up on the list, made all physics items observer. Yeah, there was quite a few changes needed just to make sure everything actually worked as planned under slow motion. I added the slow motion effect near the dozer. Yep, and as a result of that, I adjusted the dozer collide margin slightly. The collision detection was quite severe. Like, you just had to, even the slightest touch. I think I've made it slightly softer, so that there has to be definite contact between you and the dozer. It feels right now. It felt a little bit cruel. Certainly with the slow motion, because the slow motion gave me a better insight to see where the collision point took place. And, I thought there was a bit of an adjustment needed, so I did that. I added a matrix mode. Now, I haven't shown you this, but it is quite cool. Basically, when you get near a target, time slows down. So it's it adds kind of a weird sort of cadence to crushing stuff. Anyway, next entry. Fixed inevitable bugs introduced by Slowmo. Yes, there were quite a few bugs introduced, like stuff like turn rates and other little quirks of physics. But I think it's about right. I had some issues with friction, because you've got to slow down the effect of friction as well, which means you've got to scale the coefficient to the time scale. And yeah, there was some fiddling to be done, but I think it's about right. Okay, here's a big one. I started a car redesign. You might have noticed. I have got rid of the red car. Now, this is actually an important step, because a lot of the stuff that I've done so far is placeholder, like the bulldozer, placeholder art. The car, believe it or not, was placeholder art. And some of the impact effects, even the targets, I'm not sure if they're going to stay as flashing hexagons. So these things will probably change, and one of the first things that I've been looking at is the car. Now, I will say this design is not final. I quickly saved down what I had just to sort of get it in there this week. But it has been designed in line with the intended style that I have. And I'm probably going to tweak it a little bit more, but there's actually some cool features that you won't be able to see due to the video compression. But we'll get onto those next in the list. Another feature, I added post-rotation for moving parts. It's kind of difficult to explain, but the sprite object that I have, there are two positional parameters. There's the position and then the offset. So the car has a central position, but then I can offset stuff from that. And the rotation governs where that offset appears. So I can, for instance, I can have a car sprite and then I can have the brake lights appear at the back of the car. And I can specify the offset relative to this sprite. And even if I rotate the car, the brake lights will still be at the back. So I actually did a similar sort of thing for rotation. So now there's a primary rotation, which is what existed before, and that's the direction the car is going. And then there's a secondary rotation. So, for instance, if, for example, I independently modelled the wheels on the car, I could rotate them as though they were steering. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. What did I do? Oh, I independently modelled the wheels on the car and added a steering effect to them. And you can't see them because it's only a few pixels, but it's cool. I promise you, it's cool. Now the car has 4 independent wheels, and as you turn, the front wheels actually indicate that. Now, it's a visual effect. It doesn't actually have any bearing on the steering, but it's cool nonetheless. Next line, fixed inevitable bugs. Yes. There's a few quirks. I mean, you can't just have the wheels point in any direction. That's not how car wheels work. So I had to clamp the rotation to about 30 degrees freedom of movement. But yeah, a few issues with that, but I eventually polished it up. Next up, pepped up brake lights slightly. You'll notice the brake lights are in fact brighter. And I think they persist for slightly longer, so you get a longer chain of brake lights. I had some concerns over performance, but I have made some performance modifications as well, so it still runs on my laptop okay. It's a little bit jittery, but it still runs at 60 frames on pretty much bargain basement hardware. So yeah, the brake lights, a little bit bolder and a little bit longer. I kind of like them. Also, animated tyre texture. Again, this is a very minute detail on the wheels, but the wheels now appear to rotate when you move. It's just an animated texture, just cycles through a few frames, depending on your speed. But it looks pretty cool. It's actually a reasonably convincing effect that the wheels are rolling. And yeah, you can't see it. You can't see it in the video because everything's lost to compression, but it's there, I promise. Next up, implemented Bulldozer behaviors. Ah, yes. Yes, I implemented the basics for having different Bulldozer behaviors. So now, well, the default behavior is chasing the player. They just make a beeline directly for you. In addition to that, I also added the behavior to chase the target, which is equal parts baffling and frustrating when the dozer does that, because obviously you're going for the target as well. So everything seems quiet, but you notice that, oh, hang on a minute, I'm getting 1 point all of a sudden. Oh, that dozer is stealing my points. Except you still get the benefit, you just get a single point instead of 10 points. So obviously there's an incentive for you to crush it. And you also find with the bulldozer crushing the targets, is it gets in your way. It behaves in a slightly more erratic fashion. So it's not going to be the default behavior, but it probably will be one of the phase differentials. And I promise, when it happens, it is going to throw you out of the loop, because it is a strange behavior. Anyway, next up, I moved the restarting bar away from the score, which, just prevented the score from overlapping there. Because, well, yeah, once you got a certain number of figures, it would collide. So I moved it to the bottom. That's fixed. Next up, new, shinier headlights. Yes, the headlights are now hexagonal, which fits in with the visual style. And they're a little bit shinier, yeah. You see there's a kind of a glare effect on it as well. Yeah. I also made use of the independent rotation, so it kind of rotates a little bit like a lens flare. There may be some tweaking to do with that, but I'm much happier now than I was with the original headlight design. And finally, yeah, the new roughed out car sprite. It's not final. I need to tweak the actual illustration, and it's not even symmetrical. So I'll probably build it in 2 parts and then flip it. So I guess that's my first port of call. One good thing about having a white car means I can apply a colour to it, and I can make the car any colour that I like. So I might experiment with that. I don't know how well it'll work. I don't know how good it'll look, but yeah, I should be able to paint the car different colours. Anyway, that's our update. Major changes, car, and the slow motion. Both of which are pretty cool features. What do I plan to do this week? I plan to play Sid Meier's Beyond Earth. At least that's what I've been doing for most of today. I had one quick game. Turned out it took about 6 hours. Not very quick. But I will try and finish the car sprite design, and I'll probably do the groundwork for the new phase system. I'm thinking that phases are going to be 30 seconds, just because that lets me have more phases, and I think the phases could be really good fun, because I could do some pretty interesting novelty ones. Like, I want disco phase. I want the colours to change to the beat of what will be the music eventually, and I want there to be like a disco ball effect. So I might have to look into doing map effects. I want to have a matrix mode, where you go into bullet time near the targets. I think more than 30 seconds of that might be too much, but 30 seconds? Just right. Obviously, matrix mode, I might have another special effect. I might have, like matrix symbols trickling down the screen, and obviously everything will be green. I'd also quite like to have a boring mode in which nothing happens, which for some reason is hilarious to me. I don't know why, but I have all these zany modes and then all of a sudden boring mode. What happens in boring mode? Nothing happens in boring mode. And then, like low friction mode, which will make all icy, and then maybe invisible car mode. Who knows? All sorts of crazy ideas. That's what I like about this phase idea that I've got. It lets me be a little bit creative with the game design. We'll see what the interplay is like, though, because I don't know how frustrating it's going to be, and we'll try and get the blend between the zany phases and the, the regular phases, like bonus points. Ooh, zany. Boring mode as well, of course. Boring mode is best mode. So, I'll crack on then, shall I? Yeah, all right. I'll see you next week, or maybe in a fortnight, I don't know. I like delivering more updates, so maybe I won't do a dev diary next week and I'll just spend it developing, because then I don't have to think about being entertaining in a video, or interesting, or anything. I can just tinker with my game. And anyway, I don't know. We'll see what sort of progress I make today. I suspect it won't be that much. I'll just finish off some of the things I did last week. So thank you very much for watching, and until, well, whenever, farewell.